Welcome to the Choosing Happiness podcast with me, your host, Rudrani Devi, the Happiness Lady. In these conversations, we will be discussing an uncommon way to find joy in your life with weekly special guests. Did you know you could choose your happy? Won't you come and play and discover how these magical tools could work for you? Let's do this! Well, howdy, y'all, from podcast land. Rudrani Devi, the Happiness Lady, and I am super thrilled and happy to have my next guest as my first guest on the new Choosing Happiness podcast. And this beautiful man, well, let me just, Kute Blackson, I am so impressed with you. I have been kind of stalking you since I heard your name. And first of all, thank you so much for being my first on my new podcast.
My pleasure.
I love it. I love it so much. So you guys, run, don't walk. You've got to get this book, You.Are.The.One, which I just had in my ear over the last couple of weeks. This man has a beautiful voice and a beautiful story, and we're going to be talking about that. And then we also have another book we're going to talk about, but we'll get into that later. Would you mind telling the listeners now and in the future a little bit about you? Because I know that you made a very big decision at a very young age. You're so brave to step out of a world that you knew was real and true for you and create something different. And I can relate to that. I went to college at 16 to get out of a bad household situation. So I would love for the listeners to hear a little bit about your background and how you even got here.
Sure. Yeah, I was born in Ghana, West Africa. My father's from Ghana. My mother's Japanese. I grew up in London. I live in the US. So I feel like I'm a citizen of the world and from everywhere and nowhere. And so for me, my first memories as a young boy growing up in London and Ghana was two things. Number one, I was a very empathetic kid. So I would feel people's pain. I would feel people's feelings very deeply. And there was a part of me that always wanted to alleviate people's suffering in some way. I didn't know what that would look like. But I grew up in a kind of different environment. At the moment, I wasn't aware that it was different. It just seemed very normal to me. My first memories were I remember seeing a crippled woman crawling on the floor, and she picks up the sand that this man walks on, wipes it on her face, and stands up. I remember seeing the same man who essentially picked up, look at a woman in a wheelchair and say, "Hey, why are you in this wheelchair? You're not sick, stand up." Or someone who would come who lost their eyesight, they couldn't see. He'd put his hands on their eyes and sight was restored. Someone coming with crutches and they couldn't walk, and he would say, "Throw your crutches away." This man was my father. And
Right.
my father is considered, so these were miracles that I grew up seeing. And I didn't think anything extraordinary about them. It just seemed to be part of everyday life and everyday reality. And I think that was a blessing because I grew up without a sense of limitation, without a sense that things weren't possible. It was just the norm.
What a
And
gift. Can I just say what a gift that is? Because most of us don't have that privilege. So I want to acknowledge you for choosing the parents that you chose.
It was a blessing. It was a blessing. I mean, not that it was all easy. There was a hell of a journey with my father, but it was a real blessing in terms of my soul's trajectory and evolution and the ultimate perfection of what my soul was seeking to experience in this lifetime. And so, my father built 300 churches in Ghana, West Africa. He was a very mystical, metaphysical, let's say spiritual teacher, guru, mystic, went to India in the 60s and had kind of enlightenment experiences and came back, yet kept his churches. And so the beautiful thing for me was growing up with the sense that Christ wasn't just this person, but it was a consciousness that we all had access to. And so I grew up in this metaphysical environment, and my mother was Buddhist. So I grew up meditating with my mother, and that was an interesting juxtaposition. And so when I was age 8, I started speaking in my father's churches. When I was suddenly just thrown into the audience in about 4,000 people. When I was 14, I was ordained as a minister in my father's ministry and given the mandate to take over his whole operation. And I'll never forget the day it was announced. My heart sank, to be honest, because I knew that that was not my path. I knew that this was not my soul's destiny, but I wanted to help people, and I knew that that was my path, but I didn't feel it was through the structure of church or religion or my father's organization. But I was too afraid as a young boy to speak my truth. My fear was if I spoke my truth, I would lose his love. If I spoke my truth, the relationship would be over. He'd abandon me. I'd be alone. I'd lose love. I'd be an outcast. And, he had hundreds of thousands of people in his organization at that time at the height. And so there was so much pressure on me, and my entire life was carved out, was already pre-planned. And so there was a lot of fear. And I went along with it for 4 years and went through tremendous turmoil and conflict and questioning. But it was when I turned 18 that I got such a strong soul calling. And part of that soul calling was to come to the US and come to Los Angeles, come to Southern California, because on my father's bookshelf were like hundreds, maybe thousands of self-help books, everything from the Eastern mystics to the Western, like Wayne Dyer, Louise Hay, Marianne Williamson, Deepak Chopra type of folks. And so
we know them all.
I grew up obsessed trying to understand life and read these books, and they all lived in Southern California, San Diego. So I thought, what is with this place? And so I wanted to come and meet these people and learn from some of them and study with some of them. So
well, you just answered that question for me, because I was like, why California?
Yeah, nothing to do with Hollywood.
So artificial in a lot of ways.
Nothing to do with Hollywood.
Yeah.
Nothing to do with any. It was just, to me, this was the spiritual mecca for me. Like Wayne Dyer, Louise Hay, Deepak Chopra, they all live in San Diego. Brian Tracy, Jim Rohn, Mark Victor Hansen, Jack Canfield, Tony Robbins. They're all down in the Southern California area. And so these were my icons. And my soul.
Did you get to meet
icons? I did. My soul called me here because I wanted to meet them. The challenge was I had a small problem, which was I was the one that was supposed to take over my father's ministry. And so in that moment, I looked into my future and I saw that I could follow the expected path. I could take over my father's ministry and be successful by everyone else's standards. Right. But if I didn't have myself, if I didn't have my integrity, if I didn't have my own soul, there is no true fulfillment being someone that you're not and living someone else's life. And I felt the pain of self-betrayal, the pain of soul suicide. And I thought, what kind of success is it if I have to be someone that I'm not and lie to myself the rest of my life? And that's when I had that conversation with my father, faced my greatest fear, which was losing him. And I made peace with losing him and grieved that and spoke to him. We didn't speak for 2 years, which was
oh my God, it's really,
it was devastating. Like when I say devastating,
actually get that piece from the audio. For me, it was like, "Are you sure?" And he kept saying, "Are you sure? Are you sure?" And I remember, for me, when I decided to go to college at 16, I had an academic scholarship. My father's a genius, and I got that trait from him. But he was also a very abusive man, and I ran away from home many times because it just wasn't working for me. And so my mother and the guidance counselor, we had a little chat. It was like, your daughter has enough AP courses to go to college at 16, but you're both going to have to sign off on it. And I told my mother, I'll kill myself. I can't live like this. I can't live longer. I have to go. And it was so funny because that's where I discovered Buddhism, Zazen, and all these other Eastern teachings. I met a bunch of hippies. We all started, eating tofu and sprouts, and I'm contemplating my navel and all the things. But I knew that I was going to die one way or another if I stayed home, and maybe not literally. And this is where I feel like we mirror each other.
Yes, I knew that if I lied to myself now, I would have to spend the rest of my life lying to myself. And that was the soul death and the pain.
Right.
That's what the pain of that and feeling that is what drove me to have the conversation, which I wasn't courageous enough to have. And it was in that conversation that you could say I claimed my life for the first time, even though I had no freaking idea where I was going other than going to America. But I really believe that, when you follow your soul and you don't compromise your truth, somehow you bring yourself into alignment with the flow and the universe. And when you surrender to that intelligence, life has a way of supporting itself and its own unfolding that is seeking to happen through you. And the most incredible thing happened. Long story short, I ended up winning a green card in a lottery. And
I was ready to ask you. That's so dynamic. You guys, this is a piece I really want you guys to get. When you ask for reels, and I don't mean, you're just putting it out there because you think you're supposed to, but when your heart and soul is in it and you ask, the universe will fall all over itself to create it for you. Yeah. And that's when you're in divine order. And that was the piece you were talking about that in the book. I was like, oh yeah, I've had those moments, and I want to acknowledge you for recognizing that. So no, tell them a little more about that piece, because
I was in a moment when I had this conversation and I stepped into the unknown. And I think when we're on the journey, we're going to have to step into a moment of complete confusion or unknown. And it felt like, okay, universe, I'm following my soul, I'm following my guidance. Now, what the hell is happening now? And I remember saying this prayer as I was 17 years old, like, God, you don't leave me hanging in the middle of a desert right now, because I have nothing to hold on to. No college degree, no parental support other than my mother, no money, no connections, not many prospects. And I said this prayer, and I said, I really, now is the moment. I need to know and feel the alignment with the universe. So I'm taking that leap. And within, I don't know if it was 3 or 4 days, literally someone hands me a magazine called The Economist. I'm in the library of my school. And that's when I feel the chills. That's when I feel the chills. I'm like, well, I've never read this magazine before, but let me follow the clues, because I think this is a clue of life. And I turn to the back, I'm scanning the magazine, no idea why. I see an ad that says the American government's giving away 55,000 green cards in the DV1 green card lottery. I felt an entire, chill through my entire body, and knowing that I would win. So I entered through this law firm. I was told that unless I heard by September the 18th, this was April, September the 18th was the cutoff date. If you don't hear by then, move on with your life. Every day, drani, every day I'd go to my mailbox, full expectation, nothing. Every day, run to the mail, full expectation, nothing. I was visualizing Bill Clinton, the president at the time, shaking somehow I thought they would give me a welcome at the airport. I cut out a piece of paper, colored it green. Didn't know that green cards weren't green, they were pink. But
that's right.
Colored the green card green. And I was I took this stuff, I was visualizing, creative visualization, seeing myself, feeling it, seeing myself, studying a map of California, a map of Los Angeles, seeing the streets, Wilshire Boulevard, Olympic Boulevard. I was there. And September the 18th comes along, no freaking green card. I'm thinking to myself, what the hell? What
was that feeling I had?
I thought this shit works. This shit is not working. And I was so mad, pissed off at God, had one of those, F you moments to God, screaming at the universe. That night, I said to my mother, I know that this knowing I have is real, and I'm going to the US, green card or not, I'm going. Call it illegal, call it whatever you want. I'm going. And I packed my bags. I plan to get my ticket in a few days. That night, we got a phone call. My mother picks it up. It's an American voice. She hands it to me, and he says, is this Mr. Blackson? I said, yes. He says, this is the law firm that applied for you. We're pleased to tell you we just got notification that you want a green card. I'm jumping for joy, jumping around, screaming, couldn't believe it for a moment, celebrating. Then I hear this voice, this still small voice in the middle of my jubilation that says, why do you seem so surprised? You knew. Did you not trust? Did you not trust? And from that moment, I've never forgotten that moment. When I came to the US and I doubted and I questioned and I was broke and I was homeless and all these things, that moment of clarity and knowing, of feeling that there is a divine, deeper, infinite intelligence that is unfolding all of our lives, my life, all of our lives, has moved me through many moments where I wanted to give up, especially in those beginning stages. So came to America, 2 suitcases, $800, knew no one, and went and found, to something you asked earlier, harassed, I should say, and found many of the mentors and authors, Jack Canfield, Chopra.
Tell your Steven Spielberg story, please. You guys.
Oh, that's crazy.
I don't even know if I would have had the courage to do what you did. Sure. And I was like, when I heard that story, you whispering in my ear on the Audible, which, you can buy the book, maybe buy the book and the Audible so you can follow along. I was like, I like this guy because I actually was I was a film producer.
Wow.
And I was actually in this old I don't even know if it's still there, and I can't even remember. I don't remember the name of it. I don't know the street exactly, but it's an old bar like from the 40s that I went to with my team at the time, production team, and Spielberg was in the bar, and I didn't have the nerve to go up to him, and I was older than you are now.
Wow.
I was like,
Wow.
I can't do it. And I admire this guy so much. I mean, what a legend he is. The creations, he didn't know he couldn't do the things that
He didn't know he couldn't do. Yeah.
that's,
He was
and that's where we're
unconventional.
coming from. You know, I get this about you, Kute. It's like, no one told us we couldn't. And so we just, like with your childhood and your family and you seeing miracles. And I saw a lot of things too that nobody else saw. And I just assumed everybody saw all the stuff. And I come from that background because my mother, her family, you know, from mediums, and they did stuff. And I just thought that everybody could make pennies fly across the room or things like that. I really did. And then my mother was like, you can't be telling people about these things. And so I still didn't have the nerve. And I was, you know, I guess I was in my late 30s at the time. I'm a little older than you. But I saw him and I couldn't do it. So I really want you to share that.
Okay, so here's the story. Just kind of the whole context is when I came to the US, probably a couple of years in, age 20, 21, in that zone, I had this vision of like, I want to be the next Oprah, and I want to take my sort of spiritual ideas. And, you know, there was Ricky Lake at the time, Montel Williams, you know, what have you. And I want to be the next Oprah for the new generation and translate like spiritual stuff before it was that popular like it is now to the new generation, to the mainstream. And so I came up with this idea for a talk show and media, and that's the way. And I honestly, Rudrani, got so obsessed at the time with that vision that I lived it, breathed it. You know, it was my entire life of I basically went broke, being homeless, not working in the pursuit of this vision because it was so real to me. And so I was
rejected. You made friends along the way. Surely there were couches for you.
Yeah,
I did that too.
It was tough. It was tough. But sometimes, you know, a vision has you and a vision possesses you, and it's bigger than you. At least it felt bigger than me. And so I was so intent on manifesting this talk show that I began to take it into my own hands. And I said, you know, I'm not going to wait for producers. I'm going to just track people down. So I knew nothing about Hollywood. I began researching agents, and a completely different world for me. Agents, CAA, William Morris. Okay, production studios. Okay, let me research all this. And then, you know, I met a few people and I had some pitch meetings. They literally laughed this unknown kid out of I have been thrown out of meetings because they thought I was so ridiculous. And then I started researching and I said, I need to find people that are unconventional. And I read Steven Spielberg's biography. And here's a kid who would jump the fence at Universal. And a guy called Sid Sheinberg gave him a chance. And he set up an office in Universal. Nobody knew who the hell he was. It was a closet. It was a closet, right? And so I thought, this guy has chutzpah. He has chutzpah. He has balls. He's not just in this Hollywood, you know, cookie cutter system. He would
couldn't do it.
He would give me a chance. And he just started DreamWorks SKG with Katzenberg and Geffen. And I thought, you know what? I don't know if they have a TV division, but screw it. I'm going to find this guy. So the two things happened. I think this part was not in the book, but it's kind of funny.
Okay. So newsflash, you guys, you're getting a little extra something right now from Kute Blackson. So
I started tracking down Steven Spielberg, and I found a friend's friend who was a producer, quite a big time film producer, who knew Spielberg. I called him up and I said, can you introduce me to Spielberg because I want to pitch him the show? And I'm like, I'm a nobody. And he's like, sorry, I can't do that because it's my reputation. He said, look, but I feel for you. I feel your passion. Look, he said, I know a friend who coaches Steven Spielberg's son on the soccer field, adopted kid on the soccer field. And at least have a chat with him. He might be able to guide you. And so I call him up. First thing that he says is, well, I'm not sure, you know, hesitates. So I said, I'm going to take this thing into my own hands. This part I've never shared with anyone because I'm like, people will think I'm crazy. So
side note.
I write this letter to Spielberg, and I'm like,
Yeah.
I'm going to take this into my own hands. I was kind of innocent at 20, so I didn't think I wasn't thinking. It was so innocent. I find out Steven Spielberg's house address. Okay, his house in the Pacific Palisades. Okay, and I drive innocently with my buddy. I drive to his house. Think like
You're going to knock on the door?
What am I thinking? Okay, what am I thinking? But that's what I did with Jack Canfield. That's what I did with, Mark Victor Hansen. That's what I did with many of the folks in the. I literally knocked on their door.
Oh my God, I adore you.
There was a legendary speaking, like she's from the 50s, 60s, 70s, and a legendary speaking teacher guru called Dottie Walters. I didn't know any better. I saw her address in her book, and I showed up. It was her house. This like young guy knocking on her house, and she's like, "Who are you?" I'm like, "I've been reading your books." So that was my innocence and naivety. So I show up on Steven Spielberg Street, and I'm looking at his front door, his front gate, shall we say? Like, it's a huge
Wasn't
gate.
there a guard also?
There was no guard, but there was like this huge opening thing, and I'm looking, and now it's hitting me like, this could appear a bit strange. This could be a bit, but it's not. I'm like, I know I'm harmless, but the question is, he doesn't know I'm harmless. I'm thinking, maybe what do I do? Knock on his door, put something in his mailbox. And then I'm standing there, true story, with my buddy, who's in the car, who drove. I'm standing on the street going, what do I do here? What's the best way? And this Mercedes drives by. It drives by me, turns into the gate that I was looking at. And I
you didn't. You did not.
No. I look and I think to myself, that's Steven Spielberg. And for a moment, I'm about to run it. And I'm like, okay, no, let's not do that. So the next week I call up the guy. I'm like, okay, that would not have been a good idea. So I call up the guy the next day and I say, I really would like, I know you coach Steven Spielberg's son. I really would like you to introduce me. He goes, I can't do it. I said, at least just give me a hint of where his son plays soccer. Okay. He goes, well, it's kind of in Brentwood, but that's all I can say. So I started scouting around. I find the place in Brentwood. The first week I go there with a little VHS video and a handwritten letter to Mr. Steven Spielberg. And the letter started, "Dear Mr. Spielberg, would you like to launch the next Oprah?" That was my first line. And that's my first line. And then I went in to tell him who I was. And I show up, no one's there. So I come back the next week. I had one suit. It was Ronnie. One suit. I wear my suit with my tie. I made a press kit from Kinko's with a picture on it with a folder. It's old school.
Been there.
Yeah. And I show up and I see people are playing soccer. My heart starts beating. And I look on the soccer field in Brentwood and I see all these kids playing. And I look more closely and I see Spielberg and his wife in the middle of the field. My heart is beating. Now I'm thinking, what do I do? Do I pitch in? Do in the middle of the game? Do I wait? Something says, at least I had enough wherewithal. Something says wait. So I'm waiting. Now I see everyone leaving the field and I'm hiding behind a tree. And all of a sudden, I see Spielberg, true story. I see Spielberg walking. He's walking with a group of people and parents and kids. And I'm like, it's now or never, right? And I just jump out. I jump out of the tree, basically, and I stop him, and I'm in front of him. Everybody, it was like, so everyone, eyes pop open, and they freeze. Like, what's about to happen?
You jumped out.
I jumped out.
You guys picture this for a minute. I don't know, 20 or 30 people surrounding the Spielberg, and this Asian gorgeous black man who's like 20 or 21, I don't know.
21 at the time.
I was like,
and I stop. And I
does he
stop.
have a knife?
Exactly. And I start pitching Spielberg. And I'm like, Mr. Spielberg, I'm a 21-year-old kid, and you're my inspiration. And I want to launch a talk show. And at first, and his wife, it's always the women, his wife was the one that checked me out. And she laughed. And then he looked to her. Then he calmed down because she realized, this kid is harmless. And so he said, wait, start again. And so now I give my pitch again. And he listened. And everyone is listening like, And he listened to me for 5 minutes, literally, in the parking lot with his kid. And his kid, it was interesting. His kid is an adopted black kid. So his kid's also looking at me going, wow, what's going on? And Spielberg's listening to me. And he says, you know what? You remind me of myself.
Yeah.
Give me your stuff. And I'll see. I'll be in touch. I don't know about TV. But I said, and so he's walking off. And I said, Mr. Spielberg, don't forget me. And he walks off. My heart's beating. People walk up. Someone walks up to me and goes, I don't know what the hell that was, but that shit is in the movies. That's out of the movies. That was a Saturday.
Yeah.
But on Monday, kid you not, I figured he's not ever going to call me. I get a phone call from Mr. Spielberg's office. Mm-hmm. I get a phone call. I'll never forget him for this. I get a phone call from his office. His assistant says, we're not sure what happened, but Mr. Spielberg says he met you on Saturday and he checked out your stuff and was very impressed. We're not currently doing TV talk shows, but you're going to get a phone call. I get a phone call from Buena Vista TV, which is Disney.
Oh, Buena Vista.
And she says, I don't know who the hell you are or what the hell happened, but Mr. Spielberg personally called me and he said, I need to meet with this guy. And so I'll forever be grateful that he took the moment, took the time and was kind enough.
Straight up dude, my God, Kute. Okay. Please acknowledge that you had the courage to even do that, but oh my gosh.
Yeah, it was.
And I know his wife gave him a look and they have a connection. It was from Raiders of the Lost Ark that he met her.
Yes.
He was the love interest. And I don't know if you knew this, but the king of the Raiders and of the Star Wars franchise built cabinets for Steven Spielberg. Were you aware of that?
No.
I'm such a huge fan that's the reason why I know the things that I know. and then I hear your story and I'm like, oh, I feel like I really know this kid. He could be my kid.
Yeah.
Tip off my, whatever. Uh-huh. But you go and you take this meeting and what happens?
Oh, I don't know if it was good or bad, but I took the meeting. And
I can't believe you just said that because you make it clear that no matter if it's good or bad, it creates the next thing. Or
it really does. I went in there and she listened and she said, you're amazing. But we just want like Magic Johnson. We just want Whoopi. We just want a name. And you're amazing, but you're not a name. And so here's what was interesting. I got so many when I say rejections, people say they really went for their dreams. And they did two things. I got rejected probably 500, 600, 700 times. I was pitching CA agents on the street. I was pitching producers on the street. I was finding them in restaurants. I went into so many meetings and got lost. Then the one thing happened that transformed my life. I approached these managers that represented Barbra Streisand, Michael Jackson, J-Lo, Backstreet Boys, DiCaprio.
At the front door.
When he was blowing up, with Titanic, and they looked at me. Long story short, and they said, and I gave them my whole pitch. This was like, in that year period of meeting Spielberg, and they said to me, "We believe you. We're going to make you a star." They hand me a contract, management contract. Come back tomorrow. Sign this. Come back. We're going to start. We're going to take you to Fox. Take you to. They gave me a whole list. I'm like, great. Everything I had tried for the last 2-3 years, literally to make happen, seemed like it was about to happen with the push of a button.
Right.
I went home, I meditated on it with Drani, and everything in my soul said no.
Don't do it.
Don't do it. And I know that this is the same intuition that guided me to the US.
Right.
And I know that this intuition, if I don't listen to this, things don't turn out well. It turns out worse. And so
how did you decide to trust that knowing, please? Because here's a piece that I try to share with my listeners. It's like, if it doesn't work for you and everybody's telling you it's going to work for you, that's not the reason to do it. You've got to go with your knowing.
My knowing has never led
the universe. Yeah.
My knowing has never led me wrong. And the same knowing, the feeling resonance that said, leave the church, go to the US, come to America, the green card, it's the same frequency.
Right.
And so the moments when I haven't trusted that, okay, maybe it seemed like it was okay for a moment, but in the long run, it didn't work out anyway because it wasn't in alignment. I always say that what's yours will be yours no matter what. And what's not yours will never be yours no matter what you do either. And so you have to truly live in alignment and not compromise your soul, because what's yours is going to be yours. And I will acknowledge that my ego, my personality was frustrated and devastated because I really wanted to make it happen. Small I, wanted to sign this contract and make things happen. And I called them up the next day and I said, can't do it. My soul says no. And they're like, F your soul. What do you mean? Hollywood guys,
Really?
Hollywood. He said, F your soul. Do you know who we are? We can make you. And I said, my soul says no. I'm sorry. And that was it. Never had communication again. That triggered me into a bit of a spiral of, I don't say depression, but a bit of a depression because I felt so frustrated. Like, God, what do you want from me? I'm doing everything I'm guided to, and now I'm guided not to. And so it was really shortly after that I literally gave up everything. I broke up with my girlfriend. I sold everything. And I said, I'm not coming back to America and I really wanted to come to America my whole life. Now I said, I'm not coming back to America until I really find out why I'm here, who I am truly, and why I'm here on this planet, and why I've been put on this planet in terms of what my purpose is. I'm not coming back.
Is this when you went to India?
And this is when I went to I walked the Camino in northern Spain, shaved my head, took a backpack, sold everything, walked the Camino in northern Spain in search of answers. On that trip, someone said, someone like you should go to India. There's a lot of profound things that happen. And it was when I went to India that my heart cracked open and my soul cracked open. And I really started to let go and surrender, in a profound way, and had certain experiences there that really moved me beyond my own egoic identification with myself and with how I thought my life should be, this Oprah talk show thing. Right. And I went so deep inside in such a profound way. So I think sometimes not getting what you think you want is grace. Not getting what you think you want is a blessing, even though we can't see it in that moment,
That's brilliant. That's very smart. I love that you said that. We have something in common because we both had near-death experiences in India. And it changed my life completely. I was married at the time. It ended my marriage. It ended my business.
Wow.
And it changed the way I looked at everything. And for me, it was 1980. No, excuse me. When was it? Excuse me. 2000. Oh gosh, I can't even remember anymore. It's so weird. I would love for you to talk about your experience of this near death, and then I'm happy to share. I want to show you the comparison because the beauty of it is I feel like I've found a kindred spirit in you because we have so much other than the family thing. I know that your parents, which is another anomaly, speak the same language, found each other because they were both asking for their soulmates.
Yes.
And for me, my parents were an arranged marriage, and it was this disaster. I mean, well, he was 35, she was 18. She did not speak English, and he spoke broken Italian because his family was from Italy. So I'm Italian I'm an Italian with an Indian name living in America. Go figure. You can create anything, right? But I would love for you to share this story about how you were willing to even give up your own life. And I have a similar story.
You mean the one in the car when I was in the car, or
Oh no, the car one, the one where you had that altitude.
When I had the altitude. Yeah, I mean, that was
incredible for me to listen to because I know exactly what you were going through.
I went to the Himalayas.
Right.
I wanted to go to there's a place where they call Gamuk, which is the source of the Ganges, where the Ganges drips out. And I thought, I want to go there.
It wasn't in India, but okay.
It's still in India.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's in the Himalayas. And so I just figured, hey, I'm a fit, healthy guy, exercise every day. I'm going to just waltz up the mountain.
How old were you?
20, 21 in that zone, right? Okay. Yeah. And so I'm 22, maybe. It was after my everything spiraled out in LA, and I'm like, I'm done. So year after that. And so I'm at the base of the Ganges, And the next day I'm going to walk up and I'm feeling like, feeling a little off. But, it's India, probably ate something that didn't agree.
Right.
And so the next morning I start walking up and I'm progressively feeling off. And I'm seeing these sadhus, these monks, these sadhus, holy men, running up the mountain bare feet, running up the mountain. And I'm feeling kind of inadequate, thinking, this scrawny guy who looks like he's on the verge of death is running up the mountain barefoot. And so now I'm comparing myself, but I was feeling weird, and I'm thinking, wow, now I'm feeling headache and stomach, and literally now, not to get graphic, but diarrhea. Long story short, the next 12 hours, I'm vomiting and diarrheaing for the next 12 hours. It got to the point where, and I wouldn't stop. I said, I'm going to make it to the top of this mountain.
Of course.
And I'm crawling up this mountain, literally. And now I'm beginning to, like the last few hours, now I'm beginning to hallucinate. I'm seeing things. I'm like dying. And
you know it. You know you're dying.
I was sure I was.
Yeah.
I was sure I was going to die. I actually thought that it was like, some malaria or something. I've never had this experience. And so it felt like I was dying, and I'm seeing my parents, and I'm saying goodbye to my mother, and I'm saying goodbye to my father, and I'm reflecting on my entire life, all of the regrets, all of the girlfriends I, wasn't able to love fully, and all these images are coming into my mind, and I'm apologizing to people that I felt like I may have hurt and not complete with, and I'm just letting go. I'm letting go of who I think I am. I'm having this experience of just literally surrendering, saying, God, I let go, surrender. And somehow I crawl to the top of the Ganges, and I'm seeing the drip of the Ganges, and I'm feeling the ice cold water. And somehow I made it to, I don't know if it's a base camp, but it was like this tent that they had to stay right by the source. So I made it, crawled into bed, but it felt like death. And, my greatest fear at the time was getting sick in India and dying. And so, with some disease or something, right? And so here I am, lying in bed, helpless, alone, unable to will myself. And I realized to that moment, even in talk show vision, I had been willing myself into making things happen. Now I'm so helpless, I'm able to will myself into anything, just lying on the bed, just asking for God's help and grace. And I think it was a metaphor because I had reached the end, the edge. And I think this is where life starts, where we reach the edge, or we acknowledge that we reach the edge of our ego's capacity to create and manifest our life. In that edge is a level of surrender and a letting go, that we go beyond ourselves and our sense of egoic control, and we open up to another dimension of infinite possibilities of moving beyond this limited sense of I, and life flowing through us, life living us. When you realize, wow, it's not I that's living, it's life living as me and in me and through me. And that, I think, is the magic. And so something like that began happening, is what I felt, a death. And when I closed my eyes, I was pretty sure I was not going to wake up. And I woke up in the morning. I thought, shit, this is not what, heaven or hell looks like. Doesn't look like this. And so I literally started crawling down the mountain, but this time I got a donkey and hired a donkey, and I'm holding onto the donkey. Imagine a tiny little walkway down the Himalayas, and I didn't care. I was holding
this beast to get me down.
It was such a metaphor, holding onto the donkey. It was like holding on to the universe, holding on to the divine, surrendering to the divine to carry me. That I don't have to. I am not the doer. Mm-hmm. And when I realized I am not the doer, but still everything can get done and everything can happen and everything can still manifest, that was a level of freedom. So the entire 10 hours on this donkey, not moving, not doing, yet being carried by life. Right. It was this spiritual sort of trip, a metaphor, as I'm hallucinating and having these insights of a whole different way of living, a whole different way of going through life. And I get down to the bottom of the mountain. I get it. I crawl into my taxi. We speed off. like I feel like, wow, I'm still alive. And then progressively as we go,
You're feeling better.
I'm feeling better. I'm like, wait a second. 30 minutes ago, I was literally dead. Now I'm feeling better. It was like a cosmic joke from the universe because then I said, what's going on? I asked my driver, what's going on? He goes, oh, just altitude sickness. No problem.
And I've been there. Not that we actually share that, but I was doing a production in Arizona, and I'm a runner. So I went running that morning, and I was like, why am I so dehydrated? Why am I spinning out? And I did throw up, and I ended up, walking back to my hostel because I was like, what the hell was that about? And somebody told me that it was this altitude sickness thing.
Yeah.
But my story in India is a little bit different. I was there on a meditation retreat in 2008. And I'd gone because I was following a guru at the time, and we were going to visit all the ashrams of his guru, and we had been meditating our brains out with crazy kids. We were, following all these Buddhist monasteries and Brahmin priests singing, and it was so beautiful. And the night before we were getting ready to do a 2-day silent meditation, like all day long, we were going to all these different ashrams, and we came back to the hotel, and we were going to go eat in this Italian restaurant, but it was so late, and the people got kind of used to us being there that I went up and I changed into my yoga pants. I had my hair wrapped, and I had my key. That's all I had. I didn't even have ID because they knew who I was. I had my key on the table, and all of a sudden this terrorist attack happens, which was, they called it, it was the Mumbai terrorist attack. 2000, gosh, it's so weird that I'm having a hard time.
2008. Yeah, 8, 9 in that zone.
The Mumbai massacre. And it was Thanksgiving Day in the States.
Yeah.
And what we heard was pop, 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 and it sounded like firecrackers. And my friend, who is an actor famous actor in Canada, I'm going to go see what's going on. So he goes off. Ooh. And he comes back minutes later and he says, oh, it's just some hooligans in the street. So our food arrives. And I could have counted to 10. And these two guys come in, arsenal. They look like children, okay? Like 14, 16, really young. All this arsenal. And they run in and they just start shooting indiscriminately with these AK-47s, right? And I instinctively said, and I know later from talking to the FBI, I said, everyone get under the table now. And it all came because I represented a director that did some episodes of The Sopranos. And there was this episode in the very beginning when they were just making it a pilot. They do those first 6 episodes. And the guy was like in an Italian restaurant. It was Tony Soprano with his team of people. And they knew there was going to be a hit because they had set it up. And so there was a sign for it. And then when the guy walked in that was going to take the guy out, he's like, everybody hit the floor now. And so they kill the guy, they drag him out. And then Tony and everybody gets back when they start eating their pasta again, and they drag the guy through the kitchen, roll him up in a what do you call it? Like a carpet thing, and throw him in a dumpster. And then the guy comes immediately and takes the dumpster. And I was like, oh my God, this is crazy. And I couldn't believe my producer was director producer was actually executive producing this. And I was like, this is some crazy shit. But for some reason in my head, I remembered it. And it triggered that memory. And I said, everybody get under the table now. Because I had thought it was a disgruntled employee. And that's what the FBI said. They said, you're one of those people that you jump over what most people do, which is called fight or flight. Actually getting in that space of knowing what to do or say. And I thought it was because I was a film producer. And if a kino blew, I would be like, okay, we need to replace this light. We got to go to a different scene. Da, 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 da. I had been conditioned to do all of that. But in those moments, I got shot in my femur, my right tricep was shot out, my neck was grazed, and my friend next to me got his head blown off. And so all of his blood's on me, and everybody thinks I'm dead. So I play dead. And I'm floating up from my body and getting back in, and floating up and getting back in. And then what appeared to me was the Blessed Mother. I was raised Catholic. So I had some data about Christianity and Catholicism and all the things. And she shows up and she gives me a choice. And what a gift for me, because I made peace. I said, the people that are not going to get this are my mom and my husband, but everybody else knows that I've been leading a spiritual journey, whatever that means. Talk about ego. And so I'm at peace to let go. And I was so willing to go. And then she comes and says, it's just a choice. And I was like, okay, the body looks pretty bad. I don't know, but in that 10 seconds, I knew that if I actually went back, I was going to be able to create greater. And that's all I wanted to do. That's where I feel like our stories are cross-pollinated in a way, because I sense that you knew that there was something greater that you could be. And it was in those moments of me surrendering to death, which leads me to your next book, that I knew that I could choose. And in those moments I did, and it changed my life forever. And it really did. I would never give it back. I tell the story that Terrace did me a favor. I became more me than I ever even dreamed that I would be, because I was willing to face the end. And what a gift that is, isn't it?
Yeah, that's deep. It's interesting because I think our paths crossed because I remember watching that on the news because I was about to go to India about 3 or 4 days later.
Oh my gosh.
And where I stay, I do one of my crazy intense journeys with one-on-one clients in India, and where I take them is to a place called Kolaba, where near the Taj Mahal Hotel. So I don't know if you're in the Taj Mahal Hotel, but literally 100 meters away is where I stay. And so I knew the entire place of the shooting. But what's interesting as you're saying that on a spiritual level, as I'm hearing you, is on that deep spiritual level, everything is serving our evolution. And on that deep spiritual level, even the terrorist is a manifestation of the divine calling you, in a very intense way. Obviously, what they did is not right on the human level, but on a very soul spiritual level, that took you to such a deep level within yourself of your own realization that they were bringing you back, calling you home, calling you back into a deeper dimension of your own divinity. And I think
I agree.
They were playing, and I think we can see in all of our lives, if life is the play, in India they talk about Maya, the illusion, the cosmic play.
Play of consciousness,
If life is that play of consciousness, and all of life is the manifestation of consciousness expressing in the multiplicity of form, then everything is God, everything is the divine. And technically, that terrorist is a manifestation of God, playing its role in your movie, bringing you back. And so on one level, your ex-husband, your ex-girlfriend, your ex-boss, or whoever you have a challenging time with is still a manifestation of the divine bringing you back home. And I think this whole existence is a energetic one man, one woman being played by the one actor, the one actress. And I think when we either wake up in this life, call it we enlighten, or when the veil drops and we die, and this curtain drops to this play, we will see through the illusory sense of separate masks that we all have, and we will realize, shit, Rudrani was me, and that terrorist was me, and that ex-asshole boss was me, and that person was me. And when we take the masks off, we realize we were all being played by the one consciousness manifesting, and I think that
I love it.
That ability to
source consciousness.
Yes, one consciousness.
One source.
Yeah. And so I think no matter what we're going through as human beings, even if it's difficult, even if it's challenging, if we're able to surrender, sometimes the situation is difficult, it's abusive, it's challenging, and part of this one level of the surrender might be to leave the situation, if it's unhealthy. But if we just stay at the level of the physical, the one-dimensional 3D experience, the story, this happened, that happened, this is right, this is wrong, the realm of duality, then I think it's so easy to get into a limited, suffering way of being. But I think if we can surrender to, I'm a soul, I'm pure consciousness manifesting in this human experience. And life is a classroom for my soul's evolution to experience itself and remember and reawaken to what I am.
Amen.
Then every experience becomes a evolutionary lesson. And so then we start looking at life from a deeper multidimensional perspective. And then rather than being used by experience, we can begin using experience, every experience, good or bad, actually not really good or bad, because what seems good in one moment or what seems bad in one moment is just the perspective of the ego. But then we can start using whatever the experience to grow and asking ourselves, okay, even in this situation, what is my soul seeking to learn here? What is the lesson that my soul is seeking to learn? I think so long as we're doing that, whether it's that difficult experience you experienced or a heartbreak or betrayal, then we're always free. Then we're always winning. Then we're always succeeding.
That's okay, you guys, then you're free.
Yeah.
When you're willing to give up everything, people, things, all the stuff, because you know what, we all have an expiration date.
Yes.
When you're in that space of that knowing, that's where true freedom steps in. And so the gift of the terrorist attack for me was, I'm finally free. I got out of a really crazy bad marriage, and he liked sleeping around with other women, all the stuff. Even started a family with somebody while I was in a wheelchair. And I am so grateful to her, to him, because I got to be more me from that experience. And I get that that's what I was going for.
Yep.
Even though I was unaware of it at the time. It was like all those times where I was told how weird and how different I was. And I was like, I am weird. I am different. Yes, I do hear voices. I do see dead people. All the weird stuff. But I was finally in a space of, I don't care if you judge me, because this is actually me. And I'm not going to pretend anymore to fit into your reality and keep you comfortable. That's not going to work for me anymore. I'm going to actually be me. And I'll tell you something, I'm going to cuss a little bit. It scares the shit out of people. Yeah. It does, because they can't find you. They can't control you. They can't define you. And that's the beauty of what I watched you. I wish I could have done it at your age. Okay. Because I was in India. I didn't get married until 2 weeks before I turned 40. Okay. And then I went to India 5 years later. So yeah, your age. But I am so mature and so full of life that I get that a lot of people don't guess me as almost being 60, which will be next year.
Impossible. But
but I'm like, I just have fun. It's like my whole life is a celebration of living. And this is what I see with you. And I'm not even jealous. I would have loved to have been able to find it at your age. But I also know that there's no such thing as timing. It's just create and generate for your life and your living.
Yeah.
And, so of course I fell in love with the first book, You.Are.The.One. And then we're talking about surrender. And I know you've got a book coming up called, well, actually it's already out there in paperback, I believe, The Magic of Surrender. It's also available in Audible and soon to be a hardback. And
it's already out in hardback. Yeah, already last year, and it comes out like May the 3rd on paperback. Came out May the 3rd on paperback.
So it already happened, y'all, like 2 days ago. So get with the program and go get it already. So can you tell us a little bit about the inspiration of writing this book and what the magic of surrender means to you?
So this was not the book I thought I was going to write.
No.
I swear this was not. I had my own agenda and intention of books I thought were sexy, books I thought would sell, books I thought my clients would want, books I thought the public wanted, books I thought would be bestsellers. And one day I had an entire whiteboard full of titles and ideas that I thought, this one. And none of them really aligned in terms of my own deep integrity. And the only word that I could honestly say stood out as real was the word surrender. And I resisted it for a moment. And so I had to surrender to the book about surrender. And when I did, things unfolded. And so I would say that the seed of the book was planted because in 2016, I was on a high promoting my first book, and it was a bestseller. And I was on Larry King. I was like, "Yay, this is amazing! On top of the
I
world."
saw you on Larry King.
Life has a way of humbling you. Let me tell you that. I get a phone call from my father. My father says, "Your mother has cancer," literally days after.
Oh.
And I go from high to low. And my mother was everything to me. She was the best thing.
Pass?
And yes. And so
sorry. I'm in love with your mother.
I got to basically go back. I was in LA. I would fly back every month for 1 week to be with my mother and be with her in chemo. And I had every intention to get her well, every intention to heal her. After a few months, I realized that she wasn't going to make it. Right. And so I had to surrender there. But what started out as the worst year of my life turned out to be the best year, because for the first time, I got to sit with her for 8 hours and hold her hand and just look into her eyes. And I got to have tea with her and make the time that I really didn't make because I was in the busyness of my life and surviving in the US. And so my only regret was, why the hell did I wait till she was dying? And when the doctors said, okay, there's nothing else we can do, this is when the seed of the book was planted. I didn't realize it at the time. The doctor said, get your affairs in order because we don't know how long. And I'm telling you, I had been surrendering, but
what a gift your mother was for you in this book. Oh my goddess.
Yeah.
I love this.
Yeah. So they told her, you're going to die, so get your affairs in order. And I'm feeling very emotional when I'm hearing this. So
it's the empath that you are, and it's your mom.
We go to the parking lot, and I asked my mother 2 questions. First one was, are you afraid? She looks at me, not even batting an eyelid, completely calm, just be like this little Japanese, quiet, sweet woman. And she says, no, I'm not afraid, because I know I'm not this body, that this body is simply the temporary vehicle for my soul, that even when this body dies, I'm not going to die. So don't worry about me. Yes. I'll be watching you from the other side. You're like unflinching. And I thought, holy shit, my mother is a enlightened being. But I didn't even know. I've been traveling the world, and here she is in the most unexpected form, like a goddess in front of me, And then I said to my mother, and I think this is also where the seed of the book was planted. I said to her, is there anything I can do for you in your final days to be a good son? What do you need? What do you want? Where do you want to go? And she looked at me again, unflinching, and she said, there's nothing I need and there's nothing I want. She said, all I want for my life is what God wants for my life. And in that moment, and she meant it, in that moment, I realized that she hadn't cried this whole year. She didn't complain, wasn't angry, was just, just in equanimity. She wasn't attached to living. She wasn't attached to dying. She was free. She was completely surrendered. That's when I realized who my mother really was, in her soul, in her being. And so when I got that flash of the word surrender on that whiteboard, all of these memories from this year with my mother came back, and I realized, boom, this is the book that I was born to write with my entire life, my entire story, my parents, how they met. And then I began to really think, wow, that surrender, like all of the great ones, Jesus, Buddha, Gandhi, Mother Teresa, Bruce Lee, Muhammad Ali, Mandela, Martin Luther King, they all surrendered themselves on some level to life, to their souls, to the divine, to the universe. And it was in surrendering themselves that they transcended themselves. And in transcending their own egos, they tapped into another dimension of life, another dimension of their soul's potential to live through them and manifest through them. The challenges, I think, in our culture today, which is why I'm so passionate about this theme. Sure. We have this idea that surrender is weak, that surrender is passive, right? That if you surrender,
that it's like, the thing about it is when you're willing to be vulnerable and surrender, it is irresistible. Yeah. It's irresistible because most people don't think they can do it, and it's this beauty of just being yourself. Unabashedly. You don't care if you can't dance or sing; you do it anyway. You know what I'm saying? You just do it. because it's fun for you. What if you were just here to have fun, and then occasionally you're tapping on someone else's shoulder and showing them that they can do it too?
Yeah.
You know?
But there's so many misconceptions about surrender. Like if you surrender, you won't manifest your goals, dreams, and desires. You're going to get less in life. And really, what I want people to get is, if you surrender, open, allow, be available, take the limits off of life. Sometimes we get so attached to what we think we want. My idea of what I thought I wanted was this talk show, and it had to be this thing, that we don't realize that we're limiting life. And so surrender is taking the limits off of life and saying a full yes to the universe. And so when we surrender, I want people to think about, what if you didn't get less, but you got more than you could even imagine for yourself. Sure. And that's why I call the book The Magic of Surrender. The magic being that which is not like a David Copperfield, but that which is beyond your ego's capacity to imagine what's possible, beyond your imagination.
Cognitive mind out of it. Don't
exactly.
You're thinking, you're stinking, y'all.
Yep.
Let it go and just be. Yep. Tap into your body. What do you know? Because you already know. It's not something you have to. Because what's quicker, thinking or knowing, right?
Knowing knows, regardless whether we're conscious or not. You know, and we all want the magic, the true magic. And there's not one person I've asked, do you want more magic in your life?
And they go, no.
Everyone says yes, but many of us, we don't want to surrender. And so surrender.
They don't know how to choose it, Kute.
Surrender is a letting go of control, or I would say the illusion of control, because it's an illusion. It's a master addiction of the ego. Yes. Surrender is when we stop trying to force life to fit into our limited idea of how we think it should be. And it's when we give up the idea of who we think we should be and how we think our life should be, so that we can be truly available. The old paradigm asked the question, what do you want? What do you want? What do you want? But it's limited in a certain sense, because the I that is wanting and creating is in and of itself conditioned. For me, in the paradigm of surrender, it's about asking the question, a different question. It's an infinite question, a question more about, what is it that life is seeking to express through me? What is it that life is seeking to manifest through me? That I am a part of this life. What is the deepest impulse that is seeking to express and create and write and speak and, move through me, and to really open to that, attune to that. And then you can align your actions and your thinking and your strategy based on that, and then commit fully without attachment. And so surrender, I think, is the password to freedom and the real secret to your next level of manifestation. And
that's what you do with your one-on-ones with your clients.
Yeah.
And it's amazing. That's like when I listened about Carlos, and then the gentleman with his head, and he didn't want to do it. And then finally, when you told him, when he finally decided to surrender and do it, you were like, okay, so now you don't have to do it. And he's like, what? Now I want to do it. I totally, because he wanted to be a badass, It's like, now I want them to think weirdly about me when I go into this meeting, because he was so worried about his persona,
exactly.
The whole thing. And it's like, what if you were just willing to just be and not make it about status or all the things? What if you being you is actually the gift that the world has been waiting for, and gives other people permission to choose the same?
Yeah.
And that was the gift of India, because I know what you were talking about. This guy that shined shoes that had no feet. I remember that. I was like, oh, well, that's interesting. He's got no feet and he's shining shoes. What a strange world this is. And I would see children, huddled in the streets with no underwear. And I was like, okay, am I being a superior asshole because I want to feed these children and clothe them? And, what is the gift in them being in front of me here? And I'm looking at, oh my gosh, I'm self-made, I guess, in this reality, but even that isn't enough. It's more about, hey, if I can touch one person by being me, I've done my job.
Yeah.
And then everything else is icing on the cake. And how much fun could we have just being an allowance of who we are without a point of view, without the judgment.
Yes.
And that's what I got from your book. It was like this space of, hey, why do you care? Why can't you just dance like nobody's watching And then whatever, it's a country song, but it's this funny thing where we think we have to show up as something. And we never ask ourselves who we truly be. And that was the beauty I got from your book. So you guys, whatever you do not go out and purchase You.Are.The.One, because, obviously it's not going to help you at all. And then there's this other book, The Magic of Surrender, which I haven't even tapped into, but I'm just perceiving the energy of this young man, this beautiful man, inside and out. And I'm so grateful for you being my first. You're the virgin. You're the first on the show, on the Choosing Happiness podcast. And we're going to actually send this out early before we get all of our ducks in a row for the rest of it.
Amazing. Thank you so
much. Because
much.
I want to get this guy out there, and I'm going to put you in all the platforms, all the things. Thank you so much. And so just if people were trying to find you,
sure, yeah,
all the information, where could they find you? So
couple of ways. Obviously, Instagram, Facebook, Kute Blackson. Just say hi. www.Kute Blackson, my name, Kute Blackson.com. For those,
not SUN people.
BLACKSON.com. For those that, Amazon, get the paperback. For those, depending on when folks are listening, if you get the paperback before May the 12th. On Amazon, you get to attend a special event I'm doing, a virtual event I'm doing on May the 14th called Reinvent Live. Even if it's after that, we'll still give you free access to that. So go to www.KuteBlackson.com/reinvent seminar. And lastly, twice a year, I do my favorite thing to do that I teach is a 12-day event in Bali. And if you feel called to dive deeper,
I've never been to Bali.
It's amazing. My event is called Boundless Bliss. So www.boundlessblissbali.com. You would love Bali, by the way.
I bet I would. I bet the energy alone I can already perceive just by leaning into how light you be just talking about it.
Very different from India. India is like, Kali. Bali is like, I don't know. It's like Kuan Yin.
My heavens, from Murgatroyd. Kali is actually, because Rudrani is also a slayer. Like Kali, cut your heads off. The joke is, are you Ru ready? And it came from my team basically because I come up from a place of no judgment. I'm an allowance of whatever you choose, whether I would choose it or not. But most people are so used to being judged that when I am facilitating them, it's hard for them to receive this no judgment zone. It's kind of like, and I don't care how much you judge me. You poke a marshmallow and that's it's like, please judge me because my life becomes greater every time you do. I don't have a point of view. So thank you so much again for being my first guest. All the things, you guys, if you like this podcast, please subscribe. And if you sense that this episode could speak to someone, share with all your peeps, right? All the things. And thank you for listening. And if there's something, a conversation you would like to know more about, put it in the comments. I actually read them all myself. So do that. And just a shout out to my Ticketed Talk, because I've been creating some stuff on the Ticketed Talk with some young people, and it's been beautiful. And it's all about choosing happiness. And guess what? What if it was just a choice? What if you could have it simply by choosing? So by all means, if you're feeling a little, cranky pants, just know that you can change it like that with a choice. So thank you again, Kute. You've been amazing. I adore you. I can't wait to know more about you. And I hope I get to hug you one day.
For sure.
Absolutely. I would totally adopt you. Because I feel like you're a kindred spirit, and I adore you. And I am so grateful for what you do. And I want to thank you for the gift that you be in the world.
Thank you.
So, all right, y'all. Until next time. Ciao for now. Bye.
Thank you so much for choosing happiness. If you've enjoyed this podcast, please subscribe, share, and give us a like. And if you want more happy, subscribe to the Choosing Happiness membership, where you can play directly with me, Rudrani Devi, the Happiness Lady. How does it get any better than that?